Hey, folks, we are back with yet another episode for Cloud Native Voices. And today we're going to touch on a tradition of ours that led to Chamod and me starting this podcast, which was interviewing and asking some questions from the release team lead for the latest edition of latest Kubernetes release. And today we have with us the release team lead for Kubernetes version 1.31. Angelos, pleasure to have
Hi,
you here.
Angelos.
Hello, hello. Hi, Evan. Hi, Samuel. Great to be here.
It's our pleasure. And before we're going to go all in with the questions and hit you with them, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe let us know our viewers about what you do?
Yes, sure. So for me, currently, I am an SRE at Lambda Labs. Previously, I was an engineer at Canonical working on Kubernetes. And before that, I was again an engineer at a place where we did OpenStack. So throughout, like the years, I have spent quite a lot of time with open source, with infrastructure projects like OpenStack and Kubernetes mostly. For me, this is interesting because it's not always easy to mix a day job along with contributing to open source. So being able to do that throughout the years has been great for me. And so as I said, glad to be here. Yeah.
So it seems like you are managing both your work time and the time for the open source contribution as well. So, what does an ideal day in your life like? How you manage your time for office work and the open source work? So also please share some of the tricks so viewers will be able to effectively to manage their time as well.
I would say that I would start with it's not a trick. Really, it's my usual day starts with in the morning. You get up, you see all the notifications maybe from the previous day. When working in, especially in open source, there's people all around in different time zones, so there will be some notifications from, let's say, the night. Then you get to the work. You have maybe some part of the boring like meetings or all of that that has to happen, and then in the afternoon you sort of sign off and wind down. I would say for me I've been a bit lucky in a way because I've been able to contribute and be part of this open source community as like let's say part of the day job of the day job. I would say if someone is looking to do that, that it's twofold. One is somehow be in a role where it makes sense that you work on that. So it's quite hard to be in a company where you say, you know, you can pay me and I will work on something entirely, irrelevant to the company. That's not always an easy thing to deal. But then the second part is, as you said, finding a balance where you do things that your employer can understand that there's value in you being there and contributing to that because everyone gains, the whole community gains from that. But also, being close, being close rather, having an understanding manager where you say that sometimes I will have to be in some meetings in the open source community, or I will have to spend some time on that. So if you can have an employer that accepts that and a manager that can, that gives you this opportunity, then I would say go for it because it's great experience.
I think
And if
I
I
think
might,
that's perfectly said, and I like.
if I might add something, so it's quite common. We are in a technology sector where people usually like to work very long hours. I would say that please avoid that. It's not about spending grinding 15-hour days or 16-hour days. It's not healthy first and foremost for you, and secondly, it's not. It cannot be done for a long time. You will burn out very quickly. And being, contributing to open source is not about burning people out, but rather having a healthy community that, that has longevity and continuity. So yeah, please also be aware of that. Please do not burn yourself out.
Yeah, that's very good advice in general. So let's move on right into the details here. So moving on to the release of Kubernetes, let's start with the basics. What new features and significant improvements do we see in this version, and like what basically let's sum up the release notes here, if that's possible.
Uh,
I mean, I think. Ah, you're back. Okay. Um, so, I mean, are you with us?
Avin, can you repeat the question?
I'll
I
repeat
think
the
we
question.
lost you in the middle.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So let's move on right into business here. Talking about the latest release of Kubernetes, what features and improvements do we see in this version, and like basically a sum up of the release notes, if that's possible.
Right. So first of all, if anyone is listening, please don't take my words here for what's new. Please go over the changelog. Make sure that if anything is removed that you're using, you probably don't. I mean, there are some removals in 1.31, but these are all long deprecated things. So please go over the changelog and verify, like that things are everything is okay for you to upgrade. So as with every release, there's lots of things happening. There's quite a few things in alpha, beta, and also stable. I would like to highlight one of the features that I was most interested in, honestly, looking the implementation move forward, and that would be the using the being able to use an OCI image as a volume source, which is quite interesting. I mean, there is even a feature log about this with all of the details and how to use that. I think it's interesting because it allows the same following the same procedure where you build an OCI image, where you test an OCI image, and then you use that as a volume source, which can be used in the case of, let's say, a machine learning workload. You can change the model weights by just setting a different image instead of rebuilding your whole application. Or if you are a security engineer, you can have your public image, which has the security tools, but then being able to seed private signatures, let's say for malware and threats. So I'm quite interested to see what kind of use cases that enables. And other than that, there is app armor support, which is going to stable. But the thing I'm going to highlight are two things that are very interesting. So, with new features, people expect that, okay, I have my YAML manifest, a huge soup of YAML manifest, and then some new feature comes in and I have to use some new fields that, solve all of my problems. There are two features in 131 which I quite like, which are not like this. The first one is consistent reads from cache. And the second one is improved reliability for kubeproxy. So the first one, essentially, it's about how in Kubernetes there are lots of watchers, right? People things that watch the state from etcd and act based on changes on that. So there have been some changes there in the way that this part of the code works that has that is able to demonstratively reduce the load on the etcd server, reduce the latency by a lot for all of those requests, and also improve the scalability of clusters because exactly it's a lot less work that is happening. The second one is for kubeproxy. So especially in environments where you have an autoscaler around, let's say, in elastic cloud environments, there is a cap that is about kubeproxy and increased reliability on that, which means that if you have some nodes that are terminating and are being removed from the cluster, you can have proper training of all of the connections for load balancer services before the nodes go away. You can also have, if you have an external load balancer, there is a liveness endpoint on the kubeproxy itself, so you can work on training the connections before you take another way. And also there is a lot of documentation work that's happening to help with cloud providers to basically improve this experience. And why do I basically want to highlight this? It's because end users don't have to do anything. These are features that are the core of Kubernetes, just being refined and improved and being made more more stable, more reliable, and easier to work with. So these are the two things that I would like to highlight that I was very happy to see going into this release.
So awesome. So are there any significant changes to the Kubernetes architecture? So you mentioned that the couple of things get changed. So if so, how those changes affected to the existing users?
So I wouldn't say there are any, let's say, groundbreaking changes in the architecture. So like clusters still look exactly as they were before 1.31. Yeah, I don't think there's any big changes in the architecture of things.
Gotcha. And like in terms of the contribution process and the development process, like how has the community contributed to this release behind the scenes? Do you want to like go ahead and explain how the process has been happening over the past few weeks as we all got this ready for release?
Right. So this is one of the most interesting, I think, aspects of Kubernetes. It's that it's not one or two people, and it's not tens of people. It's hundreds of different contributors, contributing multiple ways. First of all, there is the design work that is happening. Design work in quotes, which means that when you want to add a new feature in Kubernetes, you don't just go and create a PR against the repo. There is a process of creating a KEP, getting reviews, and getting all this process forward. Secondly, there is all of the coding work, obviously, and then there is also documentation. So it's great to see people from everywhere from the community, like from multiple companies, multiple vendors, all of those coming together, contributing code, contributing documentation, working with one another. I don't have the exact numbers for you, but it's definitely in the hundreds of people who contributed just code, let's say, in this release, right? And this is wonderful to see. And it was also one of the things that, initially, let's say, made me interested in getting into the release team, because the release team is comprises of like 30 people in different roles, and these 30 people have to like coordinate and manage the work of hundreds. And it's super great to see, um, it's like, there's additive benefits. So if you have 100 people working each on their own direction, then you have some, some result, okay? But when you are able to coordinate that and, have them work together as a well-oiled machine, it's, for me, it's something, it's one of the things that I love about open source, where people are, contributing, and people are, let's say, giving their time for something, all of that together without a personal goal necessarily, but rather, as part of a community.
So how can a new contributor get involved with Kubernetes project, and what are the advice you would give for them?
Right. So for the release team is one of the, I would say, it's quite a challenging team to be a part of, because there's a lot of things that are happening, and there is also, you interact with others who are not there just for the 3 months that the release team is, going for. There are people who are working years on the project. It's one of those roles where it's a bit challenging in a way, because you suddenly are part of discussions and conversations where you say, okay, how do I, how do I deal with those? But then the release team also has this great shadow program, where every time there is a new release cycle, there is an open application from the emeritus advisor of the release, and everyone can sign up. It's just a simple form that presents what are the different roles of the release team, and then you can sign up for one or two roles that you would like to join. So how do you become a part of the release team if you're interested? You basically watch out for this application form. Basically, this opens usually after the GA release of the previous cycle. Unfortunately for listeners, this just closed on September 4th, so a lot recently. So if someone is interested for 132, that's unfortunately not possible, but they can wait for 133. This is one of the ways to sign up. There's quite a few things. There's sub teams for enhancements, release signal, documentation, release notes, communications. There's quite a few things. So people of various backgrounds will be interested in, will find interesting work to do there. But in general, if people are looking to contribute to Kubernetes, I would say Kubernetes is the second largest open source project. So there is always work to be done. There is always things that people are asking for help. And as a general note, apart from the release team, there is even a whole SIG contributes, contributor experience. So if people are willing to start contributing, they can always reach out to that SIG and get more information about how to get started.
So during the release process and behind the scenes leading up to the release, what type of challenges did you face specific to this version? What were your main challenges and how did you, get through them?
Okay, so quite a few points for this answer. The first one, I would like to say that and I told that to the team a lot throughout the release. I was super excited to have a wonderful release team with me. So there were quite a few times during the cycle when things were, you could see that things would go wrong, but we were able to deal with that effectively and without too much trouble, essentially because people were quick to communicate that and bring it up to light, and we were able to discuss and find a way forward. So once again, I would like to thank and congratulate the team for their communication throughout the cycle. Next one is that the release team, there are handbooks for everything that the release team has to do. So you're not out there on your own. It's very well documented. And when you first read those handbooks, you might see that, oh, wait, this is like, even to the last sentence, set in stone. And, it can feel like in the beginning you are maybe just following a script. But you very quickly see, as with everything that is complex, there are always things that are going slightly off the rails. So you get to appreciate all of this hard work that has been put into, writing those detailed handbooks, because if you have such detailed handbooks and then things are still going off the rails in some situations, but the handbooks also allow you to, keep things on track. You get to appreciate that, a lot. And just, for me, even there were some days where I was saying to myself, like, okay, if I did not have this handbook, then things would be a lot more chaotic. And, you don't necessarily, you don't want that, full stop. So there's this. And for some challenges, like in this specific release, I would also like to bring up. So each Kubernetes release has alpha, beta release candidates, and then the stable release, which for us was on August 13th. As I was testing the RC1, and this was one day before the release also, I found the regression in kubectl weight with some specific arguments, which confused me. And I was like, okay, it's one day before the release. This is probably not the best thing to find, like one day before release. But again, I was super, I was in awe because I asked on Slack, hey folks, is anyone aware of this? And literally in minutes, we had two folks who were able to pinpoint the exact line of code that introduced the bug, the regression. And in an hour, we had the PR that was already reviewed and approved. And thankfully, this regression did not happen. This did not release as part of the release. So that was also, one of the things that could have been a lot worse, but partly by chance, partly, with the great work of the community, we were able to avoid that.
So, all right. So since you mentioned the team shadow application for the next release cycle, is closed. So what is the selection process for that looks like, and what's happening behind the scenes?
Right. So what's happening? First of all, when you apply for the release team, you basically just submit a form. The emeritus advisor of the release, who is typically a previous release lead, will they get this list. They do some very basic sanitization. So, for example, if there's any wrong submissions or if there's anything that is not a proper submission, they take them out. And then they share those privately, like with due diligence with the role leads. So if there are, let's say, uh, X amount of people who have signed up for enhancements, this list, along with their applications, go to the enhancements lead. And then they go over the list and they get to decide on a number of shadows that they would like to have with them on this release. Now, for the selection, typically we try to have in the team, let's say, half and half of returning shadows, the shadows that have previously been in the team, and then half first-time shadows to ensure that there's always new people coming into the release team, and there is a healthy, continuity in all of that. So they get their selections, they collaborate with the release lead and the emeritus advisor, and after they are finalized their selections, that these are the people I want with me, basically they share them with the emeritus advisor. They get a +1 from the people as well. So you might apply, but something happens in a month's time and you're not available anymore. So they get a +1 from the shadows, and then they communicate that these are the shadows that will be for this release cycle. This is how it typically goes. As I said, so it shouldn't be. No one should feel bad if they're not selected. As I said, there's, let's say for the example of the enhancements team, there are 5 or 6 shadows, and then there's 70 or 80 or even more applicants per cycle. Right. I think there was one cycle where there were even more than that. So it's okay if you're not selected. You shouldn't feel bad. It's not that you're not worth, and it's not that you shouldn't try to apply again for the next cycle. This is what I would like to say. And also, it's not that you cannot help. So you can definitely still join the team meetings and contribute in tooling, in processes, in the retros, whatever you want.
Yeah, you set the tone up perfectly for my next question, which was if similar to any selections, I'm sure there are occasions where applicants get rejected. So what ways can they contribute in exactly, and what exactly can't they do, and what can they do if they're rejected?
Yeah, pretty much that. Like, even if you're rejected, it is okay. There's a lot of people applying for, let's say, a small number of shadow positions. So it is only logical that there will be some rejections. But you can always contribute, and you can always step in and try to help if you are interested.
Gotcha.
So, so which means, let's say, even someone being selected for the release cycle, so how he will be able to contribute to the ongoing cycle?
Right. So there have been examples. I don't remember the exact things, but there were, let's say, previous release team members who were not selected, but then they were around during the cycle. For example, there were some issues with the tooling, like how do you run some commands, how do you coordinate, or maybe how do you help with how do you make sure that let's say around week 10 to 11 there is the code freeze, right, of the release cycle. Mm-hmm. There are things that need to happen before the code freeze starts and after the code freeze. So there were cases of previous shadows that were around and were able to help even without being part of the team. Now, that obviously is not something that can be done for someone who has not been in the release team previously. this is easier for someone who has already been in the team. If you were not selected and you do want to, be a part, you cannot be part of the team. But what you can do is join the release team meetings and basically see, how this process is going. The release team meetings are open for anyone who would like to join. Also, in the beginning of the cycle, but also throughout the cycle, you can always join the meetings and even introduce yourself and say, "Hey, I'm new to this team. I want to join and be part of it." Or I want to, see if I can help in some way. The release team is always open for that.
All right. Avi?
Gotcha. Yeah. So have you had to deal with situations where some are unavailable in the middle of the release cycle? And if so, how do you, even maybe for you or for someone else, but if something like this happens, how do you deal with it?
Right. So that's always, tricky. I think you don't want to, let's say, target or make someone, feel bad, all of that. First of all, I would like to say that it's okay. As I said in the beginning, when you contribute to open source, you should remember that this is open source. It's not your day job. So you can always, if there is anything that is happening for personal reasons or for whatever, and you need your time, it's okay to do that. And if you're a shadow and let's say you have some troubles, then it's more than fine to talk to your lead, talk with the release lead, and say, "Hey, I need some time. I cannot continue, or I need to take a break of 1 or 2 weeks," and that's more than fine. And if you communicate that early, there is no trouble. Secondly, in the past, before 3 or 4 releases, there wasn't any sort of process where the release team was able to see, what does it mean for a seller to be unavailable, right? So did they not respond to a message for a week? Did they not, do the things that were expected of them as part of their role in the release team? So there is, for the past 3 or 4 releases, there is a very specific set of processes that, which is also communicated to the shadows when they say that if you are, in this team, you need to be, for example, if someone asks for you, maybe in 3 or 4 days you have not replied, that is, let's say, a notice, and then, this is how it typically goes. So there is a process. That's the thing I would like to mention, which is clearly communicated and well aware and well agreed on before the release team starts. Other than that, in this cycle, we also had a couple of shadows who were not able to continue. As I said, they communicated that early, and we were able to fill in the gaps with some of the release lead shadows who were able to step in for them. I think the important thing to take away here is that that is okay. People should not feel embarrassed or try to burn out to, mix the release team work along with, whatever else they need to do in their personal life or their work life. This is always acceptable. So it's all about communicating, and there are processes to, for the release team to deal with that and, do it. So let's say with respect to the member, as well as the amount of work that the rest of the team has to do.
Yeah, that's great that discuss with the lead and delegate the work with other people. Yeah, that's really good. So previously in the Kubernetes, the theme and the logo was about a cat. So, but this time it's Ellie and a dog. So, what's the story behind this Ellie theme? Is that your dog, or is that better story?
So again, it's twofold. First of all, 1.31 is the first release after the project celebrated its 10 years of life. So even at least for me, every time I go to KubeCon, I see all of those faces with smiles, with a very nice enthusiasm. So I wanted a logo that sort of reflected that, and I think Ellie is doing a good job at that. Now about the logo itself, indeed, it is my dog, which is usually lazy, but also like a bit joyful, as all dogs can be. And basically, as I was thinking about what the theme could be, what the logo could be, and you might also know that Kubernetes is a Greek word, which means governor, Kubernetes. So I was thinking of, okay, what happens if I just call it Kubernetes? But then I was thinking it's going to mess up so many titles, so many keyboards, so many layouts around the world. So I'd rather not do that. And yeah, from a discussion with a good friend, where the dog just happened to pass by and look at us in a very funny way, he said, "Why don't you do that?" And the logo came up again from a great friend just by accident. They just worked on it during a night, and the next morning they came to me and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And basically, I loved it. So yeah, I went with it. It is quite fun of a story, especially when you have to make the logo, but then the logo comes to you because someone else did it. Yeah, so that's how it came to be. It sort of fits well with Kubernetes. It's a cat, so now it's a dog as well. Who knows what the next release will look like.
Yeah, it's a cat and a dog, so let's see where it goes next.
All bets are off.
Gotcha. Shaman?
All right. Yeah. So, we recently saw that Kubernetes have their steering committee election. So, and it's quite interesting to see that there were certain criteria such as dev stat score required for member to vote. Like, how does having a such condition to help, and do you pose any challenges to have a fair election? So we would like to know about your opinion and the process, if you know about the Kubernetes steering committee election process.
Sure. So first of all, I'm not involved with the committee. I don't have any plans to go there, at least not for now. I have also a lot of respect for the people. So the members of the committee are always people who have been in the project since the early beginnings, and I have a great deal of respect for them, and really appreciate their knowledge and the way they approach the project and how they ensure that the project stays healthy and goes in the right direction. As you said, the election process is currently underway. I think so. There is a few things there. I think the dev stats, for example, that you mentioned, it's there not to take people away, like not allow people to enter the election, or not allow them to be in the committee, but rather to ensure that the members of the committee are people who have worked on the project and they have seen firsthand what it takes to how the project works, how contributors basically give back to the project. And I think in my opinion, it ensures that whoever is up there, let's say up there in quotes, has seen, excuse the phrase, how the sausage is made. So they are well aware of how the processes work, and they are able to much better serve the project with this knowledge. Other than that, I just want to say that all of the nominees that I have seen, all of the people that want to go to the committee, I have a great deal of respect for all of them. So I think the project is in good hands with them at the hearing. And I think this is where my knowledge or my opinion about the committee is.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. So yeah, I think we have to ask our signature question at the end to stir up some to heat things up. But what's one hot take of yours about Kubernetes? And followed by that, I want one hot take of you in the whole software development space. Far away.
Okay, hot takes. So only hot takes. Well, as everyone who is maybe keeping up with technology news, artificial intelligence and machine learning is all the rage these times. So honestly, I would like to say I don't typically do this. I don't often, have the chance to speak to an audience, but I would say that the words artificial intelligence and machine learning, first of all, are not the same thing, and secondly, artificial intelligence, when used as a technical term, is different from what people might think of artificial intelligence when they hear it in, in discussions, right? So artificial intelligence means some very specific things, which means, again, we are taking hot takes, right? We're doing hot takes here, which means that you can have
Yeah.
a large language model or generative AI doing great things, but this is not necessarily the path towards, an artificial intelligence that solves all of the world's problems, or and it can have great results now, but it's not necessarily the path towards where we need to go or want maybe to go. So because of that, I would like to see that the Kubernetes project, and in general, whoever uses AI, does not do so just to have the word AI in there, but rather they do it in a meaningful way, and they do it in ways that benefit the project, rather than let's say cannibalizing the meaning of this, or cannibalizing processes, or all of that. I think, as I said,
Gotcha. Yeah.
people in the committee, they are well respected folks. I do trust them to take the right decisions around this. But yeah, I do think that AI is all the rage at the moment, but people don't necessarily understand exactly what is it that is all the rage. They might have they might see things happening that you say, yeah, artificial intelligence will change the world. It does. It has changed it in many ways, but there's still a lot of work to be done before it's it can fulfill all of the things that people think AI can do today. And again, that's my hot take.
Gotcha.
And
And do you
for
have a hot take related to?
similarly
Yeah,
for
sorry.
software.
Do you have
So,
a hot take related to Kubernetes?
can you repeat? I mean, didn't get you in the end.
We'll
Yeah.
just cut
So
that part out. You can go ahead with your hot take about Kubernetes.
About Kubernetes. So Kubernetes will rule the world in 5 years. No. I mean, half joking, half taking seriously. So Kubernetes has, in 5 years or in 10 years from now, even if it's not Kubernetes, it's something else. I think what Kubernetes has done is that it's changed the way that people think about deploying software. It's not imperative anymore. You don't say, deploy 3 machines. You say, I want to have 5 machines with those specifications, and Kubernetes does that for you. It has brought forward the need or the benefits of, let's say, declarative approaches. And that, I think, is not going to go away. That's not a hot take. My hot take is that Kubernetes will rule the world in 5 years. And I'm just joking.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Angelos, once again for joining us and giving us so much insight from the process behind the release team. And thank you for all the hard work that you've done going into the release team as well. Yeah, that's been it. It's been a pleasure hosting you, and we hope we'll get a chance to do this again sometime.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.